Golden Black Live. Tom Mitchell, Stacy Clarity. Neither of them need an introduction, so I'll let you read the fonts or read the graphic there. But I'm glad that you're on the show, and you always have something interesting to say, Tom. So does Stacy as well. But we'll look forward to that segment as well. I want to thank our sponsors again: Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, XXX, and of course John Basham, and Basham Reynolds, who will be our guest in segment 3. Anything can happen in that segment, but anything can happen in this segment too. You never know.
Hopefully, just not a violation.
Tom is the director of compliance, if you haven't guessed, at Purdue Athletics, and an interesting, the ultimate behind the scenes. You're only good if you never have a mistake, so to speak, type job. Is that true?
That's a fair assessment. You know, hopefully I do my job very well, but hopefully I'm not needed to do my job very well as far as fixing the messes and what have you. Mostly a lot of educating and making sure everybody knows the rules, is aware of them.
Purdue's a good place for that.
This is totally random, but do you have like a big, long, swanky job title, or are you like associate athletic director?
Assistant athletics director for compliance.
Nice.
And
so
technically the senior compliance officer, but you only use that if you need to when filing waivers or violations with the NCAA.
We gave him the Twitter version. We weren't talking social media, but the small version, but,
which is good.
That's what Tom does on a daily basis. But the fact that there's a lot of topics that get on, but what's the thing that comes most across your desk that you know every day you're going to be dealing with? What?
Recruiting. The recruiting questions. You know,
from coaches.
From coaches. Mostly from coaches. Occasionally from student athletes. You know, they might have questions about permissible uses of Twitter, or you know, if a prospect comes on a visit here, you know, what can they do on the visit? You know, can they take them around campus, on campus? What's off campus? You know, because for an official visit, when we pay for a senior, you know, it's campus, but it's also 30-mile radius. But for an unofficial visit, it has to all be on campus. So, you know, a lot of recruiting questions, social media, and then, you know, from a staff standpoint, it would be extra benefits, which sounds very big and overarching, but it's more of, okay, we want to do something. Can we do this? Is this within the rules? Can we pay for this? Whether it be academic support, medically related. You know, the rules in those areas opened up a lot this year, so there's a lot more we can do that we couldn't do in the past. Not only for the current student athletes, but also for former. So in the past, there were some concerns of, okay, there's a head injury, there's a back injury, and now you're gone. It's your problem. You know, now the way the rules are written, it's our discretion. If it's something that's pre-existing to here, you know, if it fits in our insurance, you know, there's a whole host of ifs and whats. But now it's permissible. In the past, you needed a waiver, which is kind of ridiculous. So, but a lot of that was drawn a couple years ago when they did the rules working group, and we're looking at permissible benefits, student welfare, those kinds of things. So those are the two big things. There's a couple other things that were a part of that package of rules changes, like they changed the rule for outside competition for Olympic level to make it easier for us to pay. So if we want to pay for someone to try to go to a meet where they could qualify for the Olympics, we can pay for that. You could always do that in the past, but sometimes it's hard to figure out, does this meet these requirements? It's a lot easier now, which is good.
I would have no idea on half that stuff. I mean, to even know that would be a rule, you would have to ask about. I guess that's what the coaches are around for and get. Jeez. Transfers is kind of a hot topic of late, too. I know we can't really speak specifically about a lot of specifics.
Sure.
But generally, I don't know if you want to kind of talk about the process maybe
Absolutely.
of that.
Yeah, I think the thing to remember is that there's not always the correct use of terms by the general public. There's really not such a thing as a complete release. What you have are a couple different things. You have one, a permission to contact. And permission to contact is the first school granting in writing to the student athlete permission to talk to other schools about recruitment. The second piece, which doesn't apply in baseball, hockey, basketball, and football, is the one-time transfer exception. And that one says it's okay for you not only to talk, but it's okay for you to transfer and be immediately eligible. In the other sports, baseball, football, basketball, and hockey, you can't do that. They don't have that component to it. And then you have the scholarship. And so that's why when people say complete release, what they're really trying to say is it's kind of slang for you have permission to contact and we're not going to renew your aid for next year. We're going to let you out of the scholarship. So what happens from a practical matter, though, is press releases are made, someone's given a complete release, and what's happening behind the scenes is if the student requested in writing to the athletics director, compliance, or the coach, any one of them, in writing, email, text, doesn't matter, just a letter, you want to get old school.
Yeah.
We have 7 business days to respond, to say, you have been granted permission. We don't respond, it's automatically granted. If it's denied, we deny permission. And permission can be denied in a couple ways. One, you could just say no, across the board. A denial is also if we say, yeah, you can talk to any school, but not any school in our conference, or not any school on our schedule.
Right.
That's still a denial. In that case, or in a case of a complete no, you have to notify the student that they have the right to an appeal of a hearing.
Where does that hearing go? Who gets that?
The hearing must occur within, and the student has to respond back, yes, I want the hearing, and then we have 15 days to get the hearing done and give them a decision. And the hearing is done by people outside of athletics. So,
Wow.
yeah, and it's a similar process to if you cancel someone's athletic aid and they want to appeal that. Again, it's a 15-day process. The hearing is done outside of athletics by financial aid. So it's a similar structure. The faculty reps are involved. We have a committee called the Athletic Affairs Committee.
Right.
It's made up of people on campus, a couple off-campus folks, alumni, what have you, but mostly faculty, university senate, and then there's some student senate representatives. So that panel is made up of a mixture of those types of folks, so that you have people listening to the hearing, having the student have a chance to speak, and the coach say why they don't want to grant it, and then a decision's made. So I'm in there. You know, your friend Ed Howitt,
Yeah.
my boss, senior assistant AD, associate AD for student services. Titles are too long.
Yeah.
But he's in there as well. We're not participants in an active way. We're there to explain the rules. Before the hearing starts off, I'll sit down and go over all the rules, like this is the rule. And so sometimes there might be confusion when someone would say, well, I find that odd that the student did this, and why didn't they do that? So, well, because the rule says they can't. Or the coach did what they had to do because that's how the rule works. So we kind of help insert ourselves if there's any misconceptions about that when it's a question of law or a question of NCAA rule, but we don't make a decision on it. The decision is made by individuals completely outside of athletics. It's to try to make it a fair and honest process. Again, going back to due process is the goal. When you get past all that, then the next thing you kind of have to look at if it's a transfer is what type are they? You know, if it's a 2-4, junior college, community college to here, which is another 4-year school, there's no permission to contact necessary. If it's a 4-4, so someone coming in here from NCAA or NAIA or one of our students, if they're leaving, permission to contact is required. If it's just a straight 4-4 undergrad, or is it a 4-4 grad student, and you see, the exception that we had, Eric Peck would be an example of that.
Right.
Yeah.
You see that a lot in the Ivy League because they only do 4 years of aid.
Yeah.
Or not
Oh.
aid, but it's not athletic aid, but 4 years of eligibility. So
Yeah.
that's why you see a lot in wrestling, actually.
Interesting.
Because, and
take
then
a
there's the
couple of
4-4-4, which is a grad student transfer, but requires a waiver, which is almost automatically granted if they meet the same criteria as a 4-4. And we had a 4-4-4 with Sterling Carter.
I
Do
was
you
told
have
there'd
to
be
be
no
a
math.
lawyer?
You don't
mean, to
have to be,
do-
but it helps.
Because we were kind of talking about this earlier, because I know that that's U of I Indianapolis?
Yeah,
Is that right?
Indy.
And it seems to me that you would need to understand those kind of things.
It's very similar. Like when I explain to people, if I go and speak at a class, I always say the easiest way to explain the way this all works is the NCAA is the 51st state. So instead of learning like real laws and being a real attorney like my friends, I'm like almost an athletics department defense attorney. And so instead of
Wow.
learning state statutes, I'm learning NCAA rules. Instead of learning city ordinances, I'm learning Big Ten rules. And instead of learning, whatever the local city government is, I'm learning about the university policies.
So I'm going to ask you a question you're going to absolutely love here. Are the rules for the NCAA as logical as our laws are in this great land of ours?
Yes,
Okay.
you can read into that exactly what you want.
All right. It was a double-edged sword type of question. I thought I'd throw that. The logic part of it, though, is interesting because it's just challenging to be able to explain rules and be able to make them make sense to the people that really have to deal with
Yeah.
them. Is that one of the biggest challenges?
It is. It is when I'm explaining it to the general public. It's not when I have to explain to the staff and the coaches. Honestly,
I'm like, can you say that again and do that with different words?
Yeah.
Well, I still have to do that a lot too, but that's not anybody. That's not the listener's fault. That's
Yeah.
the rule. That's the issue with the rule, so to speak. The struggle is that like a lot of laws and rules, they're made for a particular situation or a particular topic, and yet there's still unintended consequences that occur because of it. So stuff happens like that. An example of that would be like a delayed enrollment rule. So in a delayed enrollment situation, you would have a prospect who, the rule works like this for most sports, except tennis, they have a shorter window, but for all other sports, including football or basketball, once you graduate high school, or once your high school class graduates when you should have graduated, you got 1 calendar year to play. Club team, whatever, what have you. If you play after that time period, for every extra 1 year after that, you're charged a season of competition, and you must sit a year as if you were like a transfer when you finally enroll. So for a prospect that had a delayed grad date, for circumstances beyond their control, and you see that a lot in foreign prospective student athletes, because the tracks over there are so different, and even as the NCAA understands them, and we understand too, different things can pop up. There can be years where they take a year off and they're doing like a practicum or an internship or things like that, or if there's military service, there's a lot of different things. But essentially that grad date is not matching up to when they're finishing, and they compete, then they're subject to the penalty. And at that point, that's when we could take a waiver and file it on behalf of the prospect to the NCAA to say, for the following reasons, we believe this to be unfair. Or we believe that the relief should be granted so they don't have to sit out, and they're not charged this season of competition. And you can see that in all different range. We had one where there's another rule attached to that where, so after the grace period, if the second year after you're competing at the national level, national team, diving, swimming, what have you, we had one where the person had competed in 20 competitions. All of them were international, their national team stuff. It was all totally within the rule. One competition in the middle was a fundraiser for his national team to help raise money, so they had money because it's not a big country. And that triggered the rule for having to lose a season and sit a year.
Wow.
So we won the waiver, and the penalty was sit one meet, and then everything else is fine.
And nobody, with your relationship, and hey, you have to have a strong relationship with the NCAA. And there's been talk, there's the article in the paper this morning about not to say the imminent demise of the NCAA, but the world is changing. And that maybe have to do with how student athletes look at that. The King Coulter situation, all that. What do we not understand about the NCAA as snarky fans sometimes that we should know about it, how it governs what it does?
I think most of the time the first thing people would say is that the NCAA doesn't make the rules, the colleges do, and that is very important. But I think first you need to say that the people down there, they care. The people in Indianapolis, they do care. Most of them either have been on campus or they were student athletes or former student athletes. So they're not trying to do anything to hurt anybody. The problem is we've got a very large structure in Division I. We have a very complicated governance structure, just like we do in America.
Yeah.
And trying to put a rule in place that works for a Big Ten school at every other school in D1 is not easy. It just doesn't work. So I think the first thing that we would tell people is that there's a lot of people that do care. So if a decision comes out that we don't like, it's because we don't like it. It doesn't mean because you're bad people. They're good people. They're just trying to do the right thing, which is apply the rules that we enacted, our rules, and they're having to put them in place. The next piece is to hammer home. We made the rules. The universities voted on them. The conferences get together and propose them. So, but change is going to happen. And you've seen some of it. We talked about the academic and the medical, and the extra benefit, enhancements that allow for more flexibility. You're going to see more of that. A lot more in the next few years.
I was in the sports information office yesterday, and one of the guys in there had said, if everybody was as passionate about their job as Tom Mitchell, it would be great. What keeps you going after this? I would guess there are hard you're not gonna, you hope to win every kind of waiver and all of those things, and I'm sure your success rate is very high.
Well, I expect to win. But yeah.
But I mean, what keeps you? It can be tough, I would guess, sometimes, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's frustrating. You know, I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
Like anybody. You know, we're all competitive.
right.
No, I just love the job. I love, you know, the work part of it, the problem solving, trying to find solutions to help student athletes. You know, I love working with coaches because they're just as competitive and passionate about what they do as I am. You know, and I just think it's a good place to be, which kind of sounds simplistic, but it's not. If I wanted to go work at Xerox or IBM, I could. I don't want to do that. I love what I do. And I think if you talk to most compliance people, they would say the same thing. They love working with student athletes and with coaches. They love knowing that if they can do their job well, they're not needed, meaning like you've educated them so there's no violations, no problems. We don't need waivers.
Right.
But if there is a problem, whether it's the student's fault or not, we're going to work like heck to make sure it's taken care of and they're not unnecessarily punished.
Yeah. One of the things that I know on a personal level made your job enjoyable to the people, and there was nobody finer than Tom Ryder. Tom passed away a couple months ago, about with cancer, and we wanted to take 1 second to talk about Be the Match, just from a personal level, and Tom's campaign, his legacy of getting folks to donate bone marrow, and you can contact the Indiana Blood Center about that. But you know, you talk about Tom, and I like, part of the things I like about you is that kind of that personality of a very intelligent guy, but not overly full of himself and willing to have some fun. Talk about that relationship with Tom. Maybe that isn't true with you. I think there's some of that, but Tom Ryder was definitely that way. What did you learn about being with Tom?
Tom was the best. He's one of the big reasons I came here. You know, we talked in the past. I worked at Ohio State prior to coming here. I worked a lot with men's basketball there. He was the first person I called in conference to say, okay, here's what's going on. Here's how we're handling it. How are you handling it? And you know, right from the get-go, everything lined up. I mean, our philosophies were similar. Our sense of humor was similar.
That's
you know,
dangerous.
It's dangerous, but it's good too, because sometimes in this job you need a laugh. And you need a laugh from someone who can make the right kind of joke.
Yeah.
You know, that's witty and intelligent, but not insulting.
Yeah.
Which is not hard. Which is hard to do.
Yeah. Definitely true.
You know, and I mean, one of my favorite Tom stories was on my interview, and so you know, picked me up at the Union for dinner, and we went over to La Scala, which is fine Italian food, by the way. And I knew one of the coaches who was going to be at the dinner. I didn't know the others. Was excited to meet them. Doug Schreiber was one of them. I knew John Klinge from being at Ohio State together, and you know, just chatting with Tom because he'd fulfilled the dream. He got out of compliance. He was doing sport administration now, so I'm interviewing for his job. And I said, so you know, how do you like it? And he's like, you know, it was a really nice day. He goes, well, it's beautiful outside, you know, and I played some tennis earlier. I'm like, no, how do you like the job? He goes, who cares about the job? The job's a job. I go, yeah, but you know, how is it different from, you know, being in compliance? He goes, you know, it's different. I go, well, how do you like challenge the coaches and question? He goes, never question the coach. Never question the coach about decision they make or why'd you put a player in or why'd you make that play. Okay, so then, you know, get out because we parked. It's time to go in the restaurant. Go in the restaurant, sit down, shake hands. As I'm sitting down and everyone's sitting down, he looks at Doug Schreiber and says, so why'd you leave the lefty in the 7th inning? What was that about?
Yeah.
He got shelled. And the look on Doug's face was priceless. And just before you could tell his face was going to turn from shock to anger, Tom did that really smooth thing, which I know, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He kind of slid in, he goes, because it seems like you had a plan, it seems like it just didn't work out. I just want to understand. And it totally changed. The whole thing changed.
Yeah.
And then he looked at me and gave me a grin and winked. I think you know what kind of grin he gave.
Yeah.
And you know, and afterwards we talked about it. He goes, did you see what I did there? I didn't question. I asked. I said, I want to learn. I want to learn because I care, which is much different than saying, why'd you do that? You know. He goes, I softened him up because, you know, Shribes likes a good joke, but you can ask and care instead of, you know, questioning them and pointing a finger. So, and it was just stories like that all the time. I mean, Tom was always good to go into because, you know, he might go in his office and hear him playing an Allman Brothers song.
Yeah.
You know?
Music guy.
And what I liked about it was I might have had something important to talk about, but he didn't have to convince me to stop talking about it. I really wanted to hear how he's going to play the lick.
Yeah.
Like, my thinking, wait, I just want to hear this.
Yeah, there you go.
And if I had asked, he probably would have said, just hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let me get this. So,
Anything else you want to ask, Stacy?
I think we're good.
You think we're good? All right, we're gonna.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I really
Tom,
appreciate it.
we always learn something from this, and we need to go back through the tape just so we can read it slowly.
Seriously.
Get the transcript so we can understand it all. No, you
always helpful
paint a
for
good
questions.
picture.
Always ask if you have questions. Questions
Yeah.
are a sign of intelligence, you know.
That's what I keep saying to myself. So that's why I ask a lot of them. But, no,
It's
you
just-
guys are always
it's a
actually
sign.
helpful from our perspective, because even in our role, being independent from the university, it is the last thing we want to do is to get somebody in trouble. You guys are always good to respond quickly to any little issues that we have from time to time. All right, we're going to take a short break, come back in 2 minutes, and look forward to talking to John Basham, if he's here, but I think he's here.
He is.
He is here, and we'll look forward to doing that. That will be interesting. At least we'll be sitting in his seats as we turn around here very shortly. All right, we'll see you in a couple minutes on Golden Black Live.